So we're rolling, I guess. Yeah, welcome to this video, which I am also live streaming on Twitch, which is going to be a little production breakdown of my latest track, which is then called Shelter, which I released a couple of days ago. And I just quickly wanted to go through a couple of things that I did in production in terms of arrangement, and also yeah, I think I'm gonna split this into two videos, the first of which is gonna focus around really the arrangement and the production itself. Another one's focusing around the actual mix down and a little bit of mastering that I've done. But without anything to waste here, let's just get started. And just to give you a rough overview of how my tracks are looking like, basically it's all focusing around the same 8 bars, you could say. Like there's a chord progression and there's a catchy melody with that, and that's basically it. And all the other tension and all the other movement in the track is by the arrangement, I would say. Like what other elements are we playing, how intensive things are, if there are drums or anything. So to get this track started, what I did is I came up with a chord progression, which was nothing really too special. And to be honest, weren't really chords, but just like root notes. I wasn't playing any major or minor in there. It was just like having a root note which fits nicely, and then having a fifth, and then having maybe even an octave, maybe even not. So what I did here was based around the notes of B. Hope you can hear that. And then it's all going down to a F sharp, and then a G sharp, and then down to an E. And yeah, to be honest, that's basically the track. Then I was playing around with some kind of melody part with that. Pretty simple. Just playing around and just trying to figure out things that were nice, were going nicely together. And this is the initial kind of thing that I came up with here. Let me just turn it up a little here. Okay, I guess I initially played that an octave lower, so it might have sounded like this. And these little notes down, the G sharp, F sharp, and E in the end here, just to add a little movement back to the original root note, is something I drew in like later. So what I did really is I was trying to play all of this live, and I totally suck at playing piano, so being able to quantize all of that is really big help. But what I wanted to do here is keep the velocity of the playing going. And this is something you can achieve, of course, if you're drawing in all the notes, but just taking your keyboard and trying to play it and then fixing everything you did is much nicer way to add a little more dynamic. Like, I don't know, it's definitely better than just drawing everything in by hand. At least when it comes to piano. I don't do that on other stuff, like on basses or on synthesizers most of the time, but for the piano I think it's a nice addition. Then next thing is, because as I mentioned, I moved this up like an octave, you want to have some kind of bass information on the piano as well, because yeah, most of my tracks really focus around piano. That's really the main part of it. And if it's not full sounding, or if it's not really the center of attention, it's, I don't know, like isn't that good. What I did then is not really putting bass notes into this one, but rather open up another instance of the piano and coming up with a separate arrangement here, in which is basically just playing root notes here, the B, the F sharp, the G sharp, and the E again, and then some little fill notes here in between. And sure, this is couple of notes lower, like 2 octaves or something, but if you play those two together, they sound quite nicely. And of course you have to mess around with the dynamics of the individual notes here. Just trying to get levels right and balance in the very beginning here already. I know you might tend to say I'm gonna fix that in the mix or write some automation or something, but that's not what you want to do, because here really you have the opportunity to do it. And if you're setting levels and you're mixing it later, you don't have any way to change the tone. Like with the VST that I'm using here, if you're playing those things at a lower velocity, it actually changes the sound. It makes the piano sound quite more mellow. But speaking of which, what I'm using here is the Contact 5 with the Alicia's Keys plugin, which in my opinion is one of the best pianos for this kind of sound that I'm going for with Paragon Access. Like, it's mellow, it can be a little brighter, but I think it focuses more on the dark side of things here, and there's not really much to it. There's not hundreds of models you can change. You can change some presets in terms of what room it is in, some reverb settings, and the very basic settings, which I kind of modified to give it a lot more release here in the envelope, just to kind of fake playing with a sustain pedal. And other than that, I don't know, like I set the reverb settings to Big Studio, but this doesn't matter too much. Generally, in terms of effects, I am not using anything until I go to the mixing stage. Like, you initially have like a reverb and a delay built into Ableton on every track you create, and just raise up the stands, but you don't want to do that. I think this is really something that you want to focus on the mixing stage later. So let me just check what I was going for in the next part of the track, because the way I work is that I'm trying to build the heaviest part like on a loop here. Everything else in the track, which is building tension, which is building suspension, or generally defining the drive of the track or the arrangement, this is everything. This is all coming later. So really what I'm trying to do here is get the most intense part going, have it all at once, and then later in the arrangement part subtract all of the parts that I don't want. But we'll get to that in a little. So we're trying to build up the drop here, and we got the piano already. And what I like to do then is start with some kind of pads to give it a little more space, basically give it more air, make it sound a little fuller just. And this already, in my opinion, sounds like it could be the intro of the track, which happens to be the intro of the track in some ways. I got 3 different pads here, basically just layering them, stacking them. That's all I'm doing. I'm trying to go really for the full sound, and I'm not trying to achieve this with like only one pad, but if you layer those, there's nothing you can do wrong in show music with layering pads, right? What I'm using for the pads is the Contact Slow, I don't know exactly what it was called. This is an instrument sampler really dedicated to pad sounds, and I don't know, I really suck at doing pads. I just click through the presets and say, well, this sounds nice, this doesn't sound nice, this might fit the track, this one doesn't. I don't know, I just go through it and just leave it as it is, and I add the variation by mixing different pads together. So the ones we have here, let me just quickly stop these here. The first one that I have is, I don't know, kind of almost sounds a little bit like an what is it called, the church things, you know. Very, very slow attack, very slow release as well, and it's more of a mid-tone, more of a lower mid thing that I would see here in terms of sound. What I'm playing actually is what I mentioned earlier, is playing the root, playing the fifths, playing the octave, and then another fifth, and then another octave on that as well. And I think I'm playing this on pretty much all of the pads. So this is plain preset, boring preset layering, stacking here. The next one, I don't know, sounds a little like this. It's a little bit more airy, kind of vocally sound-ish. Again, I would see that in the mid range of frequencies and of tones. And the last one, because these two together, I was thinking like, it's nice, it's an addition, especially with the piano parts there. But it's not really cutting it like it's not as full as it could be. And later on I decided to add another pad which happens to be quite a lot more noisy, quite a lot more airy. And it's this one. Let me just turn it up here a little. Did I do sidechain? No, I did not. Yeah, and this was basically what was missing, but sometimes you don't see that as when you are writing pads, you don't know how many you're gonna need. Like, this is something later on when the arrangement was pretty much done, I'd say, okay, here's missing something, and most likely it's gonna be this pad. And you just put it in there and copy the notes of the other ones below here and mix it in, and yeah, it turns out to be quite nice here. It's almost giving it some kind of ambient sound there already, so I like that, and that's what this sound's gonna be all about, like being chilled, being, yeah, not really being ambient, having some melody, having some movement in there, but just in general having like a chill tune to it. And yeah, that's sounds like a nice contemporary piano piece for now, but we want to make some kind of chill step, right? So what I did next is trying to get some action going in terms of movement, giving it some drive, giving it some kind of rhythm. And what I usually do there is go through a couple of samples that I have. I don't know, I think this might be from those here, the FA075 Atmospheric Chill. I don't know, I think it was a sample pack from Loop Masters, and I don't use that many of those, but they got some kind of nice drum loops, drum fill loops, and I think this one was one of them. Not really something special, but I really like the kind of water drop sounds and the interesting kind of rhythm it gave the thing. And I just threw that in here and had a look on how it sounded. And I kind of liked it because this is already giving it some kind of motion, some kind of yeah, some kind of drive already. Because really that's what's missing, and that's what you can't imagine in the first place when you start a song by writing piano notes only. But as soon as you got some repeating elements there, like eighth notes or 16th notes, something that really generates a rhythm, things tend to come together nicely. And then basically the next thing I did already was starting out with drums, and I have built up a couple of drums over the years that I'm doing music, and it comes pretty much down to this one kick drum rack here with a couple of individual drums. I don't know, I collected these over the years. I don't know where these came from, what these are. I just threw them once in a folder, renamed them, and built up a rack with those. Same as basically for the snares here. And this is why I'm having those on different tracks, also because what I want to do here is layer sounds again. And if I find a kick drum that I like, which really has a nice bottom end but doesn't have such a good top end, or not that much of punchiness that I like to have in a track, I would really just take both of them and just writing them on top of each other and then mixing or blending the sounds in afterwards. And if you would do this all in one drum rack, it would become kind of really a messy MIDI file. So what I have here basically is two drum sounds only, two kick drum sounds, and the rhythm, the pattern I'm playing is some kind of really generic chill step pattern here. let's just throw in all of the drums here. We're actually starting them and not messing it up. That's where we're going with that. Kick snare, that kind of thing. There's not really so much happening here. The good thing is, if you're working this way, having multiple drum samples layered in one MIDI file, you can just change the volume or the velocity of each sound by just writing the velocity values in the MIDI directly. Same for the snare. To be honest, really the only thing in this track in terms of having a snare loop is this one bar with the one hit. It's nothing much different than that. It's not changing throughout the entire track, except for at some parts it's playing and for some parts it's not. That's quite how simple it is. It really isn't about how complex you're getting your individual MIDI files to work, or how complex the overall melody or chord progression of your track goes. At least it's not working for my type of music. For me, it's really having the core built and then moving towards it and moving back from it and then moving back to it again. Really, that's the kind of movement that I like to have in my tracks. And I think that's working out quite nicely without even having so many complicated, different complicated elements in there. I mean, things are getting complicated anyways on their own when you start to add stuff and subtract stuff. And yeah, it's what I'm building here is only half of what I'm adding later when I'm really doing the arrangement. But for now, this is just like what I'm imagining could be the drop itself or the chorus itself. But I'm rambling here and wasting time. Let's just see what we have so far. It's piano, it's kick snare, it's the percussion loop, some kind of hi-hats here as well. Yeah, I'm using like a total of 3 hi-hats, of which I'm using in this case only 2. It's pretty simple, honestly. And then we got this loop here in there for some more drive. And that's it. It's already sounding like the track sounding in the end, right? So, but by the time you add drums, you're really missing the bass. And that's usually what I focus on the next. And what I'm doing is creating a low sub bass. Like most of my tracks are built around 2 different bass sounds. Sometimes 3, like it is in this case, but the most essential one really is a sub bass. Nothing special, just something to give the track the bottom end that you want to have in there. And not even sure which one this is. As you can see, it's just playing the root notes here again. Let me just solo it here for a second. So sidechaining on there already. Don't want to have that. Yeah, it's the root notes. It's very basic, a low sine wave. Let me just check, what is it actually? I don't know. Sometimes I create those things like with very simple synthesizer plugins on my own, like real quick, or I think in this case I didn't want to waste time on that, or maybe get it even a little broader and just did the preset warrior thing once again, where I just was browsing like sub bass, sine bass. And if you get something like this isn't really a spectacular preset of some sort, but it's doing the job, and it's filling out that low end that otherwise you're gonna be missing in your tracks. And I hear a lot of Chillstep or chill dubstep tracks where I think, yeah, it's a nice track, but somehow the bottom end is really not there where it should be. And by simply adding such a sub bass here, and also this is important as well, like giving it a little bit of sidechain compression. Let me just show you what I mean here. Basically, sidechain compression, if you don't know, you have the compressor kick in whenever the kick drum is being played. Just to make room. So you don't want to have the sub bass playing continuously, but only when it's, yeah, you want to have it playing continuously, but when the kick really is punching in, you want to make room in the low frequencies for the kick drum to be an actual kick drum. Otherwise it would just sound muddy, or you will really have problems in your mix later. Well, that's a topic that I could cover in a different video or in a different stream, maybe, how we go with that in detail. But I think it's just one of the things you need to have definitely here. And then, yeah, that's basically it. Nothing really too complex there. But I think you can hear the difference with and without. Like, this is, just let me turn it up a little. You can see, or better, you can hear how this is having like a soft bottom end, and if I turn it off, you can hear immediately that there is something missing, right? And then the next thing I do, usually I would define this as some kind of bass sound, is the Paragon X's signature kind of chunk sound here, which let me just turn it up a little bit, which you tend to hear in all of my tracks. And this is basically a really simple preset, to be honest. Like, I'm using FabFilter Twin here because it's really great synthesizer, where you could, if you're not really sure how to use them and you want to have some tool to learn synthesizing with, like, this is really great one. It's pretty straightforward. This is all explained by arrows, how the sound is generated, how the sound is going. And I mean, the modulator sections can be quite confusing there, but you get used to it, you grow in it, and you really learn to appreciate it and really learn to love it. So these chunk sounds that I'm having here is basically just two sawtooth waves and a noise wave, which all on their own would sound something like this here. More of a super saw sound there. And what then I'm doing is I'm first of all making it kind of this punchy sound by removing the sustain here with the envelopes. So you really not get these long legato voicings, but rather get these short initial hits. And then what I'm doing, I'm sending the whole thing through a filter here, which is filtering at, I don't know, what is it, 1K basically, with a lot of resonance here, and applying another envelope here to the filter. So what it does, basically, the initial time you press on the button, play the note, it will let whole of the frequencies through here, like also the part which are then filtered out later. I don't know, I'm probably doing a really horrible job of explaining things here. Basically, the envelope describes the way the filter kicks in. So you just, with the very initial hit, you're just leaving all of the frequencies through, and then it's immediately like closing down. And this gives it this percussion type of sound here. And you can play with the curves here and to get different results in the track, and sometimes do that while playing all of the other things back to see how much presence I want to have in there. You can see how this is changing already, like boosting up the sustain of the second envelope really opens up the filter, and once you close this, it's getting more of that percussive chunky sound, which I really like, and it fits the track nicely. So then it's just basically a delay here. I don't know, it's very, very quiet. You don't actually need it in here because, yeah, who the hell cares? And it's not going to be that present in the mix later anyways. But what I'm playing here it's interesting because it's kind of controversy to the rest of the track. What I'm playing here is straight dotted eighth notes with, again, here the root note and then the fifth. And it's really a little working against the rest of the beats here. But I think that's what giving it its character and why I like that instrument so much. And if you're mixing it in nicely, it really sounds good and gives it even some more movement. I don't know how I had that in the final mix. I think I'm even lower on the frequencies here. But you can see what I mean. It's really the percussive thing that I'm looking for in this instrument. And also because this wasn't cutting it for me here, because I was thinking this is still not really full enough and as full as it could be potentially, I try to go for some more dubstep wobbles, and yeah, not really wobbles or whatever, but this is one of the presets I found from quite a lot earlier. It's the sound I was using in a track called Regain Hope, back when I was working under the name A.N.O. And this is the one that, yeah, the kind of saw wave that was emerging and filtering up. Just let me play it here. So if you know my other music, you might recognize this one as well. And this is basically saws again with some kind of overdrive, some sample and hold, some dimension expansion, like you would usually do your basic dubstep wobbles, and then automation, or not really automation. This is I'm using the performer tool with the curves here to control the cutoff of the filters. And this is really a lazy automated way of playing that. Oh, I'm sorry. Like it's I don't know, like full notes or something. It's doing the job automatically, and I'm not really trying to get too creative or trying to get too much drive or too much movement with those in there. I'm just keeping this in here because I think it sounded good. It was giving it more dynamic. It was just making the mix a little fuller here. Yeah, sure, it depends on how you set the volumes, but just having a little bit of that in there is quite a nice thing, honestly. Yeah, and that's really basically it. That's the main part of the song. And the way you would go about finding an arrangement with that, because now this only loops and you can't like loop this 20 times and call it a song. What you want to do, or I don't know if you want to do that, but at least what I'm doing is I'm having all of these tracks, the ones I made here, on play, and I switch to the session view rather than the live view. Here's the old arrangement in there already, don't want to mess that up, so just move a little bit over here and then go to your live view and just hit the record button. What it does is it's transferring all of what you did there into the session view, into an arrangement view. And honestly, it doesn't matter, really doesn't matter how much you play, because what you then do, let me grab all of those here. Do I have all? Yeah. Move them back so we don't get distracted by the things that are in there already. Let's just move over here. And what you then do is like really, you can select all of those and then drag them however, how much you would like to have them, or so. And this is how I tend to start my arrangements. Like now these are bite sizes which you can mix and arrange and draw and do whatever you want basically. Usually I start out with piano, like no, not that, with a melody part in the first place, like playing 4 bars here. Okay, this is wrong starting point there. Just giving like 8 bars or something. Is it here? Oh, I might have messed up the other ones as well here. Do I? Ah, no. And the nice thing is you can move everything. What you don't want, just move it back. You're gonna find a time later where you'll use it. So let's say this is a nice part where I maybe want to have this, the pads already kicking in, or maybe this one even a little earlier. Let me just kill the drums here for now. Something like that. Like you just move the parts off the loops, the clips you just created in your live view. Just move them over to your session view and arrange them however you like. Like this is, I think, similar to what I was going for in the original arrangement, like having the first pad coming in here, playing it another 8 bars, having the second pad come in, and so on and so on. Yeah, that's basically it. So I think we can jump over to the original arrangement that I did with the track and go through a couple of things here as well, which I think might be interesting to you guys to learn, or just to understand how I do things if you're interested. Yeah, as I mentioned here, it's the melody piano line in the first place where we're starting with. And then the piano chords are kicking in. Oh no, they're not. That's another thing I added. Get to that in a second. But got the pad here right in the beginning. Got the second pad coming in at this point. Third pad then. Everything down below is something I did not add in the other view here. This is something that I was thinking might serve the arrangement, and might serve the tension of the arrangement. These are most likely little effects like noises, like cymbals, like yeah, impact sounds, that kind of thing. Just go to that in a second here. But this is what the arrangement looks like, and I added a third piano here, which is basically playing single note once again, but on a even higher pitch. And I just threw them in every now and then, just to give it a little more variation over the entire track. Like, as you can see here, at some parts it's you can hear it, at some points it's not playing. And this is where the third pad actually kicked in, and this is the most prominent one. This is where it's yeah, where the first real next level of sound basically is. What I'm adding here is, I just gotta reactivate the plugin here. Also a acoustic drum kit, and this is filtered to hell and this is distorted to hell, as you can see here. Like this is really a great plugin, the Camel Crusher, if you just want to add some plain distortion to things. It's something nice. Also filtering here, filtering the low end out, giving a little bit of resonance at around here, like 1.5K, and then filtering everything above that. But the drum kit itself is actually quite nice. It's a, I don't know, it's a free plugin. It's based on real drum recordings, which sound like shit, of course, because I got all the distortion and the filters on there. And yeah, it sounds nice, and using this in acoustic tracks as well, like as a real drum set, but for the purpose of having like a background beat here going in the beginning and doing some filter and effect stuff here, it's really good. As you can see here, it's not really spectacular in this case, but it adds to the tension, to the build-up of the song. And if I would like turn off this plugins, it would sound like this, but obviously that's not what I wanted to go for. Also, what's really great about this plugin is it comes with a ton of MIDI samples which you can play within the plugin itself, or you can simply just drag whatever you want. Drag whatever plugin you want and place it into your session directly. Like if you really trying to mimic acoustic drums and acoustic drum grooves and beats, you can just point, drag and drop, click wherever you want to have what kind of sound there, and that's nice, I guess. And as mentioned, I'm using this here as a filler. And by accident, I included one of the drum fills, which all on its own doesn't sound this bad. And I decided just to keep it in there as an introduction to the real drop here. And as you can see here, this is building up until like bar 41, which is like a minute and 10 seconds in or something. And you just add to this. You don't add really anything dramatic. You don't add any of the real drums here for now, because that's what you wanna preserve for when the drop kicks in. And what I like to do is building up tension, and then right before the drop kicks, just removing most of the elements to give the drop even more space and make it more impactful. Like having these chunks here, having this stop like 1 bar before the drop actually hits. And then the only thing that's playing right before the drop is this drum fill and one of the synthesizer effects that I tend to use quite often. Sometimes I have little piano melodies playing at this specific spot, but in this case not. So I think it just works for the track as it is. And then everything else is really just trying and experimenting with arrangements. What I like to do here is having, when the drop kicks, I have like, how many are those? Playing at like 16 bars here. And that's it for now for the first part, and then slowing it down back again. The part where it's getting more silent, where we're only back to the pads and the piano chords here, or more mid-range piano melody. I don't know. Then we add the chunks back in. So this is basically how the tension of the song is built. Like you build a progress, you build tension by adding things, releasing things, and then adding things again, and then in the end, eventually things are fading out. And this is like I would say 90% of my tracks are built up. A very long intro, if you will, where it's actually taking up to a minute or sometimes even longer to get to the first initial drop, and then it's slowing down again, and then the drop is coming again, and then most of the time the drop is coming back again with some kind of variation in it. Like in this case where I added the lead synthesizer here an octave higher at the second part, just to give it some variation. That's the thing. I mean, the chords aren't changing at all, the notes aren't changing, and this is basically the only way that you are able to create variation if you're producing this kind of music, like adding elements, subtracting elements, modifying the pitch of elements here, and that's it. And we're already at the outro, basically, where the track is starting to fade out, the drums stopping, the synthesizer is still going, and gradually we're removing the elements here. Like we are getting rid of the wobbles here, we're still having the chunks, but they're gonna stop in a second here, and then the only thing that's left basically is the piano, and back to the start. Like they start with the piano, then evolve, then have some kind of drop, then here again have some kind of a part where it falls off, and then drop again, and then this is basically the outro. So yeah, quite simple. This is how a Polygon Access track is made. And I wasn't mentioning the synthesizer here before, or I didn't even have this in the other view here, because this was something I was just playing in or recording or typing in. I don't know. I think I was playing this with the piano, really, with the keyboard, because I was thinking like it really lacks some kind of melody right where the drop hits. I can play it without. You can hear that, and it's really. Yeah, I mean, the drums are there, the vocals are there, the bass is stronger and everything, but there's really nothing really interesting happening. Like having a new lead line, having some new melody that's catching you, and so I just put my fingers down on the keys and started playing this one, which turned out nicely. Let me just go to the plugin itself. What it is a Fab filter once again, which tends to be one of my favorite synthesizer plugins all the time. Square wave, some kind of noisy here. Or no, it's a triangle wave with some kind of modification on it. And then it's multiple voices, having one of these filters again, this time no modulation on it. Or it does have some modulation. It does have some modulation via the LFO here. That's what gives it this bouncy feeling to it. Like the filter's closing, doing something like that, like all the time, but more in steps rather than having the curve here. And I think that's really the key if you don't want to waste your time like writing automation for all of the single tracks. You just use the tools you have, and Fab filters are really great plugins for that, because you can use all of those modifiers. You can use LFOs, you can use envelope curves to modify any of the other parameters, and it's super simple to use, and it's, I don't know, not really that easy to learn in terms of understanding how all these things are interacting with one another, but yeah, I think it's really a great tool to get started. So I basically explain what the synthesizer is doing. Save that as a preset, and I think with this one kicking in at the drop, we're really getting somewhere. This is really getting a new level of attention here. If I will turn it on. Again, be aware that this isn't the final mix. The only thing really mixing wise is that I'm trying to balance the levels out a little here already. Say this is too quiet, I would just turn it up a little here. Yeah, and that's basically it for all of the instruments, for all of the synthesizers, for all of the pianos, for everything that's really melodical or rhythmically essential for the track. I have these tracks here and this track over here, which are more of the effects tracks. Let me just play those here at the drop. You will see what I get, what I mean there. And this honestly is really what can help your track evolving or giving it structure or giving it arrangement, because excuse me, most of the tracks that are not using those kind of elements sound empty, and parts seem to not transition into each other like that nicely as they are doing in this track, for example. If let me just play this part without any of the effect stuff here. You will see what I mean here. You see, like, really it's one part, then there's the drum fill, and then there's another part. But let's just put those back on here with the other instruments. really helps the transitions between those parts. And what I'm using here is I think it's again FabFilter, because I really love that synthesizer even for such effect stuff like this. What is it even on? Let me just check here. What was it? Oh, this is some kind of noise. Yeah, one of those razor sounds, just building up tension. And it's super simple to do. I think you can do it with any other synthesizer here as well. What you do is you just put on a noise oscillator here, and then you give it a quite long attack time. So when you hit the button here, it takes like 2.5 seconds and raises and constantly puts out a little more noise and more noise and more noise and builds tension. And you want to have the release for it not releasing it like directly, because it would just cut off, but giving it like 1, 2, I think I went even a little longer in this case, just to get it released again. So what you do is just press a button by the time it's supposed to be hitting the track, and then just super simple stuff here as well. I think I have one of those here. The opposite direction, like using it as a symbol. Oh, it's pretty. Let me just turn it up here. Kind of a cymbal sound. This is basically the same thing here, but you don't go for any long attack time. Just have it hit instantly, and then having it decay like over 7 seconds here. And it's super easy, super simple to do, and it really does do a lot for the track, to be honest. Let me just, I don't know which one was it. I think it was this one here. Don't want to go too loud with that because they can mess up your ears. And then one of the, I would already call Paragon's Access signature moves is the dropping bass. Like literally dropping bass. This kind of sound here, and I'm using it to get back, let's say, from the drop part, the very heavy part, to the more quiet part here. I don't know if you've noticed that in the first place, but let me just show you what I'm doing here. You can hear it slightly in the background, I guess. It's this part. This is interesting one, and I really like it, and I think it really is kind of a fill element, especially when you have a part like right before the drop where all the other things are dropping out, and you need to fill it with something just to not make it boring. And I think this is really a good thing to do here. Let me just turn it up a little and just play it again so you see what it's doing here. In the context it sounds quite nice, I guess. Again, this is also just building up tension and bringing a little more movement. I think what's really important with those chill kind of tracks is that you need elements that point the direction of the track. I don't know, for me it's like difficult to explain, but this is one of those elements basically. And you need to make transitions as smooth as possible, so you can really have that chill vibe to the whole track. And having those elements here certainly helps. Also, what is this one? I think this is a sampled one. Yeah, I got that from a sample pack. I don't know where from, I can't remember. I got some library folder which is full of those things, and just pick out whatever ones I like here. And this one is pretty much the same as the synth one that I created here on my own with the FabFilter plugin here. But obviously it's a lot more complex, and it's got quite a lot of other elements to it as well. Also, it starts lower and goes higher and it's longer, and there's more movement in it. And again, like with the pads, stacking all of those sounds might work if you don't overdo it and you know how to mix it properly, but it really can help drive the song into the right direction and smoothen out the transitions. And this is really important. I think in the final mixing stage I added some kind of cymbals here for the actual drops or whenever it was needed, but for whatever reason I decided to not do that in the arrangement session here. So yeah, I don't know what's really left here to say. If I've forgotten anything in terms of how I produce the tracks, yeah, maybe let's just quickly go through some pseudo mastering things here. Oh, I didn't put on any of those here. What I kind of tend to do is mixing things into a multiband compressor and a limiter, but really gently. So you can just hear, just give it some more gain, and basically this is just to prevent peaking at certain points. And the multiband dynamics is kind of it just tightens up the bass. That's everything that's doing. In the case where it actually hits, it starts working. You can see here it's not even doing anything. It's starting to work at the drop and not earlier. And also it's really working quite gently here, and this is the only thing it affects. And I just like to do it, and in the mix down phase of the tracks I like to heavily overdo it, maybe even at some point. But I think for my music, what it really needs this solid bass fundamental thing to build other things on top of, and compressing bass and kick drum is really essential to that. And this is why I'm just trying to mimic that kind of sound here already. I mean, in this case it doesn't work out because it's not driving too much into that. There's really gentle compression happening here. But other than that, yeah, limiter, just to make sure we don't get any clipping here. And other than that, nothing really happening. Like, there's no effects, there's no reverbs, there's no delays, there's no bus compression here, or any bus processing. That's what I'm doing in Cubase later when I decided to mix things. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm trying to get into the habit of grouping things and naming things, and because when you start to work with different workstations, and the way to transfer audio from the one to the other is, in my case, I export all of these tracks as individual tracks. Naming becomes really important, because if you don't name your tracks in the session directly, you will have a hard time renaming them later in the browser or in the other sequencer that you're using. I mean, you don't need to be super creative. I mean, like, my pads are called 1, 2, and 13 for whatever reason, and then sub bass chunks. So you would just have clean audio tracks to work with in the mixing session, which already have names where you can see, oh, that's this. I mean, this is not too complicated. I don't know how many tracks we are here at, like, I don't know, with all the effects stuff, something 15 tracks maybe. I've worked on projects with, let's say, 60 to 100 tracks, and if you don't start to name them correctly, you might run into problems and may have a bad time there. And especially with the effects things here, you just tend to name them effects 1, 2, 3, whatever, how many there are. I've had sessions where I like 10 of those tracks. Just name what they're doing. Like, this is a razor, this is a cymbal, this is a bass drop, this is another, okay, it didn't do a good job here, but this is another razor. It makes life so much easier later on. Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm not mixing in Ableton directly is because I totally do not like the mixing settings and bus routing things, because I tend to mix all of my tracks into different group channels. Like, I have a group for drums, I have a group for kick drum and bass, I have a group for piano, synthesizers and pads, and I don't know, just the way Ableton handles it here. I mean, it works, you can make it work, that's not the biggest problem, but I think Cubase does a lot of better work there for you with all the sends and the routing, and it's easier, I guess, and it gives me a lot more flexibility. Also, which is what is a nice thing there is that I have free resources. I mean, again, this track isn't too complicated, and my CPU doesn't have to work with so many things here, but a couple of synthesizers, especially massive, can kind of drain your CPU quite heavily here. Once you bounce all of that into audio files, you're basically freeing up any of the resources you were wasting earlier. And also what I really like, and this might be the most important reason for me to mix in another software, is that you really get a fresh start. Like if you did mistakes here already, if you did processing here, which later on turns out to be not working, sure, that's a bad thing. You kind of need to go back into your other software and export the track with different settings, but you kind of open up your ears and your eyes, and it's really like a fresh start, especially if you take some time between arranging the track, bouncing the track into stems, and then like a couple of days later opening them and really focus on mixing. This is what I learned, like the results work way better for me, rather than if I was just trying to force the mix down in this session here as well. So that's gonna be part of the next live stream or the next video. We're already like 1 hour into this one here already. I think I covered most of what I was trying to get down here. I was trying to tell here. If there's anything that you guys are interested in, particularly in terms of production techniques or mixing techniques or mastering stuff, I mean, I'm not that good of a mastering engineer, but I tend to know how to mix music. I mean, it's been my profession for a couple of years now. If you have any questions, just post them down in the comments here on YouTube, or head over to twitch.tv/the Paragon Axis. Somebody has taken the name already. Might have been me with a different account, I don't know. I can remember. Head over there. The links are most likely in the video's description here. And yeah, just come over there or have a discussion going in the comments. If you have any feedback for me, because I'm kind of new to doing all of this here, live streaming and recording videos, I just upload tracks and that's it, and I have communication with you guys through the comments, but not really this kind of insights into the production that I'm doing here. So feedback on that is welcome, of course. And yeah, I think that's it. Write me a message, drop me a comment, write me in Twitch chat when I'm online. Again, I'm not really on a regular schedule for now, but yeah, we'll see how that's working out. I'm just trying to make it fit for now. Every now and again, just if you head over there to Twitch and hit the follow button, you will be notified whenever I'm coming up with live streams, and you can join in there and have a chat or just get more insight in how I am producing the music here. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Hour-long video. I think I would straight up upload this to YouTube as well, without any editing, with all of the burps in there. Yeah, we will see. Just let me know if you like this kind of format, if I should be continuing this kind of production insights, or if this totally not what you're interested in, or if you want to have something completely different. Just let me know. I mean, I can read your comments. I'm able to read. Yes, that works for me. You can write me on SoundCloud. You can download all of my music, and yeah, guys, I guess that's it. Have a good time. See you next video, or see you next live stream. Take care, guys. Bye.